Welcome to the 16th episode of the Dapper Gaming Podcast for May 25th. I'm your host, Ryan, and with me, special guest Victor, aka MythicTyrant of youtube.com/MythicTyrant.
Very original, I know. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen?
Not a lot.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me back, Ryan.
Always good to have you. This time we'll see if you can make it past the 45-minute mark.
Yes, we will. Unfortunately, I quit drinking, so.
So, I guess we'll start with what we always start with. What have you been playing this week?
Well, funny story. All right, so obviously Halo, because I've been working on my guides. Mythic Difficulty Guide just came out a few weeks ago. That is Legendary All Skulls on. And it's definitely been an interesting ride. I have only one mission to go at this point, and that's the mission Infinity. It's going to be hell, but I'll be enjoying it anyway. But there's a lot of games that I really do want to try. I actually just downloaded the War Z. I was kind of interested to hear your opinion on that because I know that there is a mod out there for Arma 2 called Daisy, and apparently this is where they got the idea from.
Oh, War Z had a whole debacle relating to it.
Did it?
Well, okay, so the guy who made the War Z made the worst PC game that's ever been released.
Really?
Yes, he released Big Rigs, a big rig racing game where none of the AI races you because they don't know how to drive, so they just stay there at the start line. If you reverse, you infinitely accelerate. They advertised cop chases, but there's no cops in the game. There's even like a cop chasing like a big rig on the cover of the game, but there's no cops. Essentially the game's completely broken. And the War Z is another game that's completely broken.
How so?
Well, one, the AI is really stupid. The zombies don't work correctly. Two, people don't, like, spawn in sometimes, so they'll just be invisible, and they'll kill you, and you can't see them. So, what are you gonna do about it?
That does sound a little bit broken.
And reflections, at least, I don't know if they changed how reflections work, but what they did was that they would take your, like, what you were rendering, and they just flip it upside down. And so when you would, like, walk up to, like, a body of water, it would reflect, like, traffic signs and shit in it that are, like, in front of it. So it would, like, reflect the front of a traffic sign. But even though, like, the sign's in front of the lake, so it should reflect the back of the sign.
Wow.
Yeah, so...
Well, the game's been out for, what, 6 months now? 7?
Yeah. They also had a thing where,
it.
like... If you basically complained about the game being broken on the forums, and they just ban you from the game.
Whoa.
Yeah, so... Oh, and they got taken off of Steam.
No, they're back on.
Yeah, they're back on now, but initially they got taken off for false advertising. Because they said, like, the game world was over 400 kilometers squared in size for, like, the one map that's in it. And the one map that's in it only has, like, 60 squared kilometers of playable area.
Daggone. Well, is it all playable now? I haven't even loaded it up yet.
Basically, the game was so terrible at release, and the, like, basically, like, the record for the guy who was actually making the game so terrible that everyone who was interested in it basically walked away after they realized that it was him.
Wow.
I can't remember his name. He's Russian.
FPS Russia.
Sergey Tidov. Oh, Sergey. Why can't you make games that work?
Are they planning on making any fixes to it?
I don't know. I stopped following that game like 4 or 5 months ago.
Because I've been interested to play it. I just haven't had time.
Well,
There's a lot of stuff out there I really want to play. I just haven't had time to do it.
Well, you own it now and you can't get a refund, so... Unless you got it through Steam, in which case you can possibly get a refund, but they only give you one. Like, that's your refund.
Well,
So
fortunately, yes, I did get it through Steam, but I'll give it a shot first and just see if I like it. I mean, I didn't play the DayZ mod at all, and I
DayZ
was going.
standalone's supposed to come out this year, sometime in the fall.
That's what I'm hoping for. I saw that, but it was kind of touch and go. The information about it seemed kind of slim, but I hear that the people who made it did want to make a standalone game, and if that's true,
Well, they've
that's
been working
fantastic.
on one for like
Yeah.
quite a while. They're going into beta in like the next couple weeks apparently.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a very small closed beta. So
Trust me, the fall cannot come soon enough. There's a lot of good stuff. But you know what? In the meantime, we have a lot of good movies to look forward to in the summer.
sure, I'm not. I've kind of like ceased being particularly interested in summer movies. I don't think that many of them are going to be very entertaining.
Well, I mean, Iron Man 3 is out. I haven't seen that yet. Um, Man of Steel looks like it's going to be very good. Let's see, Will Smith's After Earth. I want to see that. And then, of course,
I'm
the main
excited
thing.
to pirate that and see how terrible it is because boy, did they get a crack crew of guys who
Did they?
have only done terrible in the last while. Well, they got Shyamalan, they got Will Smith, they got small Will Smith.
Yeah,
Exciting
Will
stuff.
Smith. They got Will Smith Jr. But the one that I really want to see is World War Z.
Uh,
Oh, Ryan, such a pessimist. Did you read the book?
no.
The
I'm
book
just.
was fantastic.
The movie apparently is nothing like the book, so.
It's not. I can tell by the trailer alone that it's nothing like the book, but it still looks like it's going to be a fun zombie apocalypse movie, so I'll see it anyway. But the book was basically a bunch of smaller stories combined into one. And so you had different characters describing different events that happened throughout the zombie war, because the book takes place after the zombie war, basically how humanity survived. Whereas in the movie, obviously, it takes place as it's happening.
Yeah.
And the zombies are like ants. They can crawl on top of each other.
I'm pretty sure the movie has like fast zombies in it, doesn't it?
Yep, it's fast zombies, and the ending segment for the trailer showed the zombies piling up over each other to get over a wall to get to the people. It was pretty crazy. It still looks like it's going to be entertaining. Nothing like the book, but still entertaining.
So, what other games are you trying to get into?
Let's see. What was the I did want to try Battlefield 3. I just never got a hold of it. I hear really good things about Skyrim, and the one game that I've been putting off for months, probably about 6 months, no, longer than that, is World of Warcraft. I got my character, I think, to like level 87, and the cap is 90. And so I'm going through Pandaria, and again, it's a fun game. I didn't stop playing because I didn't like it anymore. I stopped playing because Halo 4 came out. So, uh, basically, after I'm done with my guides on there, including my special project, which I'll discuss later, um, I'll go back to playing World of Warcraft again. I mean, that's a fun game.
I've been. I want to go back to WoW just so I can play through Pandaria because I mean I've played every single expansion, I've beaten every single raid in the game up until now, but I've never even bothered to buy the expansion for Mists. I just don't
It's
have. I don't have the money to pay $15 a month for a game that I can only play for like a few hours a week.
No, I agree. And considering that I haven't played in 6 months at all, that's 6 months. Third, okay, I'm bad at math, but that's what, like $90, something like that. That I
Yeah, pretty
basically just,
much.
yeah, that I basically just kind of threw away. But it's $90 over 6 months. And the thing of it is I know that I can load up World of Warcraft at any point in time and play it from anywhere. I actually have it saved to my thumb drive because it's 60 gigabyte thumb drive, and I can put it in any computer and just play it straight off of that without having to install it.
Yeah, I literally my issue is I literally cannot afford $15 a month at this stage. So,
Well, I understand the economy's crap.
oh, it our economy is not as bad. It's more that I'm in university, and so I just can't find a job because no one wants to work around my schedule. Because I can only,
Gotcha.
I basically like I'm at school full time, and then I train full time as an athlete. So I just don't have like, I can work like one night a week. No one wants to
Wait,
hire
gamers can
someone to
be
work.
athletes?
Yeah, I know, right? Insane. And so it's just like I can work one night a week, and no one wants to hire someone to work one night a week. Unless people want to give me like crazy split shifts, I would work all the split shifts. I could work every single day, 8 hours a day, if someone would give me 8 split shifts or 7 split shifts a week. But no one would
What
ever
would
do
you want
that
to
because no one hires people for split shifts in one shift a week. No one does that, and
do?
that's pretty much what I can work. And the Canadian government not supporting athletes means I just have no money.
Oh.
They pretty much only pay for boxers and hockey players, and I'm not a boxer
There's the
or a
Canadian
hockey
stereotype.
player,
I was waiting for it.
so I don't get any money.
Oh, that sucks.
Yep, but that's
Could be
okay.
worse. You could be the United States.
Well, in the U.S., I could possibly get some money for
Well, this is true.
athletics, but my school would cost me 40,000 a year instead of 10. So
Yep.
that's a that's a lot of money. You'd have to give me a lot of money to be an athlete in the U.S. because it's a lot more expensive to live.
It in Canada,
No, in the U.S.
in the U.S.
Yeah.
Depends on where you are. If you're in the any of the high dollar areas like Washington D.C. or New York, yeah, costs a lot of money. But if you're in more rural areas, it's not so bad.
Yeah, but you got to go to school still. Still going to be expensive. A lot more expensive.
College will be, but public school's free.
Well, yeah, public school's free here too. I used to live in the U.S. briefly. I know what the taxes are. They're the same. I pay pretty much the same amount as anyone that
Yep,
I
I
know
get
who
about
lives in the U.S. actually.
anywhere from
But
a
I get
fourth
health
to a third
care.
of my paycheck taken out. You see that initial number, you're like, yeah. Then you get your check, you're like, oh,
Yeah, you lose so much of it. It's quite disappointing.
yes, very much. They told me my bonus was going to be $1,200. I was like, that's awesome. Got my check, 750. What?
I do all my work under the table.
That's what I probably should start doing. Well, keep the full-time job, do part-time work as well.
So, this week I've been playing Neverwinter, which is another MMO.
Is it free?
It is free, and it's based on, well, it's like half of a sequel to Neverwinter Nights. It's based in the same region, of D&D.
Yeah.
So,
I've seen it. In fact, one of the girls who does my Women of Xbox show streams quite often, and she streamed Neverwinter, so I got to see it. The graphics, not gonna lie, are better than World of Warcraft's.
well, it should be. It's a newer game.
Yeah,
Um, I like the style because it allows for the fidelity to be fairly low. Like, not grossly low. We're not talking RuneScape low levels of fidelity, but
right,
like it allows them to be fairly low but still look appealing
right.
because it's cartoony, but it's cartoony enough that it doesn't need to be like amazing powerhouse graphics behind your computer.
Yeah.
Because I mean, MMOs they just can't do that. It kills them because you go into the Stormwind or Stormwind's equivalent for whatever game you're playing and it just dies.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what's interesting is I hear the new Bungie game that's coming out next year called Destiny is supposed to be an MMO.
Yeah, it's supposed to be an MMO FPS, which has questing, so I'm thinking quite a bit like Borderlands, but hopefully not bad. Because Borderlands is a very boring game.
I heard it was. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews for Borderlands. Um,
Borderlands is fun to play with your friends, but my problem is that when I play games with friends, I don't like to just I don't count playing games over the internet as the same as having them over at my house, like as a different experience. And
right,
Borderlands 2 would be a lot better if I could get 3 friends together or 4 friends or however many friends I wanted and hook up to a couple TVs and play with them. But you can only play 2 people on a console, which is stupid. And it's basically just because the consoles can't handle more than 2. Like it just kills them because of rendering. And
right.
so then you end up basically just playing online, and that's stupid. I just That's not what I would want to do. And it does the other thing is that just because a game's fun with friends doesn't mean the game's good. Like if a game which had the same concepts as Borderlands but executed them well and you could still play with friends would be a far superior game to Borderlands, because Borderlands is a crappy game by itself, like when you're playing by yourself. There's nothing redeeming about it. The bosses are uninteresting, everything's a bullet sponge, the guns aren't interesting, the gunplay is fairly bad because you just spray. There's no real like handling to the guns. There's no
Right.
feeling to them. And so like the whole thing is just not very well executed. But it's an FPS you can play with your friends in co-op, and so it's popular.
Well, like I said, Bungie's doing Destiny, and they did really good with Halo and Marathon. Um, so I have a lot of high hopes for them. I mean, I know them personally, and so I know what they're capable of, and I have a good feeling they're not going to let us down. Plus, the graphics, just from the screen grabs I've seen, look amazing. And that's an MMO.
I don't think they released any in-game stuff.
They had
Everything's
one. They had
Did
one
they?
screenshot,
Uh,
and that's how I knew it was a first-person shooter. But and that is what kind of threw me off because judging by the screenshot, I was like, oh, they're making another FPS. And a friend of mine had said it was going to be an MMO, and I was like, no, it's going to be a first-person shooter. I didn't realize it was going to be a first-person shooter MMO.
yeah, I don't know. I never really played any. I've never played a good MMO FPS that's based around questing. So
I have yet to play one too. Of course, the only Fallout 3 technically isn't an MMO; it's an RPG. But and I played that for a little while, and the graphics were great, but it got boring quickly. I'm not really quite sure why. I guess maybe because there was too much stuff to do, and I think that's why I sort of stopped playing Oblivion because I didn't really understand what I was supposed to be doing. I hear Skyrim fixed that problem, but I haven't played Skyrim
no,
yet.
Skyrim's very much the same way.
Really?
There's a ton. Well, one of my big issues with Skyrim is that there's a ton of content, but none of it has any depth, and the world's very static.
Really?
Like, yeah, well, you go and you finish off like the main quest line, and you're the hero of the world, but no one even acknowledges it. They're like, "Who are you? I don't know who you are. Once I got shot in the knee." And it's just like, whatever. So, like the game world is not alive at all, and I'm really disappointed that people like that game because it's not as good as Oblivion, and it's a far shot from fucking Morrowind. And then you have a game like The Witcher, which is probably the best RPG to come out like this generation. It's got an actual it's got a great story and it's very mature. Like it handles mature content in a mature fashion, unlike games like I don't know, Saints Row or GTA or whatever, doesn't matter, where they're like, huh, boobs. Like that's pretty much the extent to which those games handle sex. And that's not really like the case in The Witcher. The Witcher 2 is like pretty linear in comparison to other games, but it's still quite excellent, and it handles the story really well. The story is really excellent, and it's probably the only RPG that I think handles choices correctly, because they don't have a stupid arbitrary morality system like every BioWare game, and choices that you make actually affect the narrative in pretty substantial ways.
Right.
So I'm I'm personally excited for Witcher 3, which is supposed to be next year. So
And is that slotted for Xbox One or is it going to just be PC?
they said PC and next generation consoles,
Consoles. Nice.
but they haven't confirmed that it's for PS4 and Xbox One because I don't know. They just said we're gonna release it on what systems can handle it. Because The
Wow.
Witcher 2 could like they had to cut like all the graphics out and all the pretty stuff to make it run on the 360 and the PS4. And The Witcher 2 still like is a system hog on most PCs. So like I can't max that game's graphics. I'm pretty far from being able to max that game's graphics. It's one of the prettiest games. So
Wow. I might have to look into that a little bit.
yeah, it's like one of the best RPGs that I played in a really long time because the story's just really good.
It kind of makes me think of Fable. I don't know what you think of that series. I've only played the first one, but I really enjoyed it. And you talked about world dynamics, and that's one of the things that I noticed changed. As you gained either good or bad karma, that's how people would react to you.
Yeah, but this doesn't have a morality system. This is more. It's not like they think that you're evil or good. They just know things that you've done previously in the game, and so they
Yeah.
react like their dialogue options change based on that. The Witcher 3 I'm excited for because it has three completely different endings and like basically it has three different storylines based on what you go do in the game world. And because when in The Witcher 3 the main quest line's not going to wait for you apparently. In The
Right.
Witcher 2 that's not so much an issue because they had like this chapter system so the game wasn't open world. So
Right.
you had like a really really big level that you could go do stuff in, whereas Witcher 3 is supposed to be open world, and so the main storyline basically if you don't go and do it then it progresses on and then you fail it.
Oh, wow.
So it's supposed to have a game world three times the size of Skyrim. So
Wow. What time period does it take place in?
uh it's like a medieval fantasy game.
Oh, so it's kind of like Skyrim in the same respect, but just done better.
uh well, Witcher 2 is not like Skyrim because it's not open world. The combat's completely different. It's all third person. um like I wouldn't really compare the games based on their mechanics, but definitely for story and characters is probably one of the best games ever for it.
Wow. Very cool. That is, again, what I liked about Fable is just the dynamics of the world changing and feeling like you were making a difference.
Yeah,
So,
I mean this is a little more subtle because like you don't grow horns and people run away from you,
right.
but there is like a noticeable change. People do basically acknowledge what your choices were in the previous chapters, and the end of the game has some pretty like substantial choices that you get to make that it acknowledges. Like the end of the game can take you like 20 minutes or it can take you like 2 hours based on what choices you make at the end of the game.
Wow. That's still pretty cool, though. I like that.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. And then they're going to allow you to import obviously your game. You can import your game from Witcher 1 to Witcher 2 and then you'll be able to import from Witcher 2 to Witcher 3.
That's actually quite nice. They actually mentioned something similar to Mass Effect in those regards. If you've played all three, it's supposed to build up to something, I believe.
Um I played all three. I imported through all three for Mass Effect. I don't remember anything special, but I didn't like the end of the. I never played Mass Effect 3 multiple times. I played it the one time. Went, oh, what the hell is this? And then never played it again. Uninstalled it. Ending was bad.
No, I played a little bit of the first one, got bored.
The first one. The first one, like, you can't do the side quests. They suck. A lot of them suck. But I like the mechanics of that game better than the second one. But the second one definitely had, like, a better pacing. The third one was just, like, not good.
I I heard, I don't know. Different people in the community say different things. So it's like I don't get a chance to play these games, but they look like fun. Like there were a lot of things I enjoyed about the original Mass Effect. It's just that when you start doing those like rover quests, they're
Yeah,
bad.
well, those were... that. Thank God they got rid of that in Mass Effect 2. Because those were terrible.
Yes.
But... Yeah, Mass Effect 1, I just did the main storyline because a lot of the side quests were bad. There's a few notable ones that I like. I like doing stuff in the Citadel, but I don't like going out to different planets and, like, non-main story quest planets because they just suck. They were not entertaining at all. But there's also very little purpose to them because it's a third-person shooter where your equipment barely matters, at least in number 2 and 3.
Really?
Yeah, well, they really dumbed down the RPG elements.
Daggone.
Do you want to move on to...
Yeah. To Xbox.
Yeah.
Let's do
So,
it.
we've only got one real discussion topic this week because there's only really one thing to discuss this week that anyone wants to hear about, and it's the Xbox One. So, Microsoft on... it was Tuesday? Yes, it was Tuesday.
Yes.
Microsoft revealed the Xbox One, the next generation of Xbox consoles. And that was a thing. It was definitely a thing to watch. How excited are you for that HDMI pass-through? Because, man, is it making TV immersive.
Well, I tell you, first of all, I probably won't pick one up until they have a close release date for Halo 5. I kind of did the same thing with Xbox 360. It came out in 2005. That seems like ages ago. But Halo 3 didn't come out till late 2007. So I picked it up about a month before Halo 3 came out and, never went back after that. But And so what I'm probably going to do is the same thing with Xbox One. Now, I will say, first of all, that one of the things that will probably hindering me or keep me from picking one up right when it comes out is apparently the games are not backwards compatible.
No, there's no backwards compatibility in the Xbox One or the PS4. Well, the PS4 is going to do backwards compatibility, sort of, through their streaming service, Gaikai, because you can
Right.
stream games. But the Xbox One, they haven't announced a service like that. Now, everyone seems really like it needs to have backwards compatibility to be worth buying, and it's like, that does... Why? Can you not have two boxes next to your TV?
People
Because,
aren't used to it.
well,
Thing
there's
of it
very
is, most
few...
people are spoiled now. They didn't come. I
The Xbox 360 didn't have true backwards compatibility,
no, it had an emulator, which is why Halo 2 runs like crap on
and
it.
why like half of the Xbox library doesn't run because they have to they had to write the emulator for each game,
Right.
and so it just like it does not work. A lot of the games don't work, and so like backwards compatibility was only in like the first generation of the PS3. They took it out because they had hardware backwards compatibility. They basically stuck a PS2 inside of a PS3 box. That's why that original PS3, the dome one, was goddamn
Huh.
huge. It's also why it costs like $700.
Wow.
And so like there's only one way to get I've heard a bunch of arguments regarding the backwards compatibility for Xbox One and why it should be there, and they're all wrong and stupid. One of them is basically, why can't you make an emulator? Well, you're basically taking a power PC for your CPU. You need to make basically a 3-core, 2.4 gigahertz power PC. You need to emulate that on an 8-core, 1.6 gigahertz Jaguar CPU, which is just an x86. So you have to basically emulate a faster single processing speed on a completely different architecture on 8 cores that are slow, which is stupid. Like, it's not going to happen. That's something that's just not going to happen. Maybe if they had like a 4-core, 4 gigahertz a core CPU, then you could do it because it would actually fit. Like, you could basically emulate each core as a new, like, each core of the power CPU on each core of the Xbox One, but that's not how you can work this one because each core is slower than last gen.
Right.
And it's just a really stupid, like, you can't do it with software. It's just not going to happen. So that means that you have to do it with hardware, which means you have to stick a 360 inside of an Xbox One, which means, one, you have to make the form factor goddamn gigantic.
Yeah.
Because you have to stick a 360 in an Xbox One, which isn't going to happen. And it's going to substantially increase the price, probably $300 at retail.
Right.
Because you need to put all the hardware in there. You need to pay the engineers to manage to figure out a form factor that does that. You have to spend more money manufacturing the boxes, like, not the parts, just making the form factor, like, just making the case is going to be more expensive per unit. And then you have to write a ton of software to do it. Like, basically just switch between the two systems.
Gotcha,
So,
okay.
Once again, you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars in R&D and hundreds of millions of dollars in manufacturing to bring backwards compatibility in. No, that's stupid. And then the other argument is, why can't you have two form factors, one with the backwards compatibility and one without? Because then you need to be manufacturing two different consoles, and one of them is going to sell significantly less than the other, and it's going to be substantially more expensive, and you have to create manufacturing facilities to manufacture this backwards compatible Xbox.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to transition it over after you get rid of the backwards compatible Xbox to make the non-backwards compatible Xbox. Like, the manufacturing process is completely different. So, once again, you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on shit that most people don't want.
Wow.
So, backwards compatibility this gen is just not going to happen. Like, the only reason why it happened with the Wii U is because it uses the same architecture of the Wii. It's just faster versions of Wii hardware. So you could get away with it. But this is a completely different architecture than the last Xbox. So there's no way you're getting backwards compatibility in.
Well, it's not that big of a deal, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a nice feature to have, especially if there are not a lot of titles released for it yet. And that's the only reason why I would have wanted it from the get-go. But I mean, really, there was no such thing as backwards compatibility until PlayStation 2 came out. You just got different consoles.
That's not entirely true. There were backwards compatible consoles before then.
Really?
Yes. There was an Atari console that was backwards compatible.
Interesting. That I did not
There
know.
were a few cartridge ones. Also, I think the 32-bit Genesis was backwards compatible, obviously, with the 16-bit games. And yeah, there's a few backwards compatible consoles before the PS2. There's like 10 of them, actually. And then obviously you can look at handhelds, like the Game Boy Color was backwards compatible with the regular Game Boy.
Yeah.
GBA was backwards compatible with GBC. DS was backwards compatible with GBA. So there's been a
Dang,
lot of
huh?
backwards compatible hardware. And then obviously 3DS is backwards compatible with DS. So
Yeah, like I said though, prior to that, I mean maybe Atari, but I never had an Atari. I had Nintendo, Sega Genesis, had an N64 when those came out, TurboGrafx, and a PlayStation. And of course, none of those had backwards compatible consoles.
yeah, the backwards compatibility thing is just like a stupid complaint from people. Like it doesn't make any sense. It can't. That can't be your selling point. Is
Well, I
that
think
you're
that's just what people have gotten used to, though. I mean, when you stop and think about it, the last Xbox, even though it had an emulator, it still technically could play Xbox games.
only a few of them
And
though. Like they
yeah,
could never play. God, what was that game? Had ninjas. Kung Fu Chaos. That was a game.
interesting.
That game was awesome.
Um, I
Kung
mean,
Fu
being that,
Chaos. Face full of fists. That was a game.
the only game, of course, me being a Halo fan, the only games I really cared about were the original, or the only games that didn't come out for the 360 were Halo 1 and 2. And they, of course, remade the first one, which I see a lot of games getting remade for 360 or Xbox One. So, I mean, which can also be a positive thing when you stop and think about it. I mean, personally, I liked the Halo remake, and they may do a remake of Halo 2. I liked the Resident Evil remake. I thought that was awesome. So, I'd like to see some of these games remade if they can't bring them over directly from the Xbox.
Uh, at a later date. I can't. I can't basically. There's a lot of games that I can't say. Yeah, you should remake that. Like, if they remake the entire Halo series, like, come on. Halo 2 wasn't
Well,
even
and
that
I
good.
doubt they will. I think what's going to end up being the case is they might remake the second one just because it was the only other game not to really work on the 360, but that's, the flagship console right now for Microsoft. So once they do that, all of the Halo games will be playable on the Xbox 360. And I think that's why they remade the first one, aside from just updated graphics. I can see them doing that with the second one. I think the most we'll see out of three ODST, Reach, and four is PC releases, which I actually kind of hope they do because I loved Halo 1 PC.
I would play the Halo games if they came out on PC, but up
Well,
to
and
this
the
point,
first
I
one
haven't
is.
played. I haven't played since Halo 3, pretty much, because I sold my Xbox and have no interest in getting one again. Like, I'm not even gonna buy it. I'm gonna put it out there right now, unless I become like a big hit on YouTube and play video games for a living. I'm not buying an Xbox One because I have no purpose to own one.
Well, and that's fine. Like I said, I won't buy it until there are games that come out for it that I want to play. I'm not going to buy one just to buy one. And I know there's a lot of people out there who will do exactly that, who they'll just buy it because, hey, it's Xbox, and they'll bitch about it because it's broken.
Are you talking about
It's,
about frat boy Chad? Because he's definitely buying it.
oh, really?
Chad's buying this, no doubt,
Wow. All right.
because sports and Call of Duty, man.
Well, that I guess, they release Call of Duty games what every year.
But there's a Call of Duty for this one,
Yeah, Ghosts.
and you can watch football next to it. So this is the one.
Xbox One, made for the truly ADD kid.
I'm. Do you want to talk about the TV features? Because that's the only thing they've talked about besides backwards
Sure. In
compatibility.
fact, you'd be educating me. I didn't see the whole thing.
Perfect. So we had a very basically the Xbox One is called the Xbox One because it's like one system for your whole entertainment console. Like
Right.
one system for everything. And so one of the things here I'm going to bring up, actually no, I'll do that later. But one of the things that you can do with the Xbox One is that you can plug your cable box into it, and then you plug, and it just has an HDMI pass-through on the back. So which is you have a capture card, so
Yep.
you know exactly what I'm talking about. You plug the HDMI in, and then there's an HDMI out, and you run the HDMI out to whatever you want to play your game on.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just a pass-through. The Xbox One has exactly that for your cable box. So you plug your cable box in, and then you plug your Xbox into the TV, and you can watch cable without changing the input, because apparently that was too hard. And they made like the majority of the reveal was spent basically talking about how it's too much of a pain in the ass to change the input on your TV to watch your cable, and so now I can yell at my Kinect to do it for me.
Wow.
And so like you can bring up your TV guide, and then you can have like Skype snap next to your television show so that you can talk to someone while you're watching TV, because that's what we needed. And it can, here's the only cool thing that they've done. So they partnered with the ESPN, so that when you are watching like a football game or a basketball game or whatever, it updates your fantasy scores like next to the game. For like if you play fantasy football or fantasy basketball or whatever, it'll update like your score for your fantasy team as you're watching football or whatever, like next to your television show.
Yeah.
Because it like snaps everything and does picture in picture with it.
So are people having a really hard time just concentrating on one thing at a time?
Yes, exactly that. People need to be able to play COD and watch Transformers next to it, damn it. Because
it's like what I hear on the forums about people who say, "What song do you listen to when you play Halo?" And I go, "The one that's in the game."
Yeah. There's only a few games that I play that I like put a T. Okay, to be fair, there's a lot of games that I play that I have two monitors, so I put up like a TV show or a movie or something on the other monitor when I'm playing them.
Yeah.
But they're all like turn-based, really slow turn games, where it's like I'm gonna spend like 10 minutes making my turn, and then I'm gonna wait 10 minutes for the other guy. So like these are slow games, or they're MMOs, and then you're grinding shit and just doing your dailies. So who cares?
Right.
Who needs to pay attention to that?
I used to do. Granted, now my television is connected to my PC, and I don't have cable anymore. I just use Netflix and Hulu. But I mean, back when I did have cable years ago, I remember I'd sit there and watch Monk or Psych or whatever and grind in World of Warcraft, and it kind of made both a little bit more entertaining. So I understand it to a degree, but like when you're playing like Halo or Call of Duty or whatever, it's not really a slow game.
Yeah, you don't need to be watching something. Or plus, my background for FPS is Counter-Strike, where it's like sound sensitive. So it's like, how dare you listen to music, sir? Because it like very adversely affects your gameplay, because you can actually hear people approaching, and so it's important to have like very good sound so that you can hear them. So I play like when I used to scrim a lot, and when I used to compete in Cal and very briefly CEVO, like I would be in a pretty much pitch black room, big headphones on, no sound. Only two things I would hear was teammates talking in vent, or the game. That's it. And in vent, you only talked when you had like directions to give. Like if you basically all you did was spot people. So you'd be like, "Wow, there's a guy in this hallway that I just saw," and then you would not talk for several minutes, because that's all that matters. Like you just said that you saw someone, and so that your team would know they're there. But generally you stay quiet so that you could hear where the enemy was. And so obviously in a game like Halo or COD, their sound design isn't as important. While it's just not as well done, and so the sound becomes less important because it's not really directional. Like, you can hear footsteps, but you don't know if they're behind you or beside you. Like, you can't tell. And so being quiet isn't as important. But I got into basically, if I'm playing a fast game, I don't listen to music and stuff just because of what I come from for a background for, well, faster games where the sound was actually important.
That makes perfect sense to me. Um, no, I hear about people who do that. Every time someone mentions how they listen to music while they play, I keep thinking about that World of Warcraft episode of South Park. They go, Clyde, hit him with your bow. Clyde, Clyde. Zips to Clyde. He's reading like a Playboy magazine. He completely ignores the game and he's like, "We lost Clyde." And I keep thinking someone trying to watch TV while they're playing Halo just like sits there and stares at the wall.
Yeah. So basically, they talked a lot about TV. They basically talked about TV for 50 minutes of
Wow.
the 60-minute conference, and the last 10 was a Call of Duty trailer. So how amazing was that? But yeah, you can control your TV with your Kinect. You can turn it on and off. You can actually, I don't know. No, you can't turn off the TV, but you can turn on and off the cable box. I'm assuming all of this is through HDMI control. So newer cable boxes, you can control them with basically by sending controls from whatever they're connected into over the HDMI cable. So that
Right.
you and so older cable boxes will not have any of this functionality because they won't work. They won't take in the connection. Or well, they won't take in the commands from the Xbox because they won't have HDMI control. And so
Oh.
and so there's a mystery IR. Actually, I'll talk about the box form factor later. But older cable boxes, none of this shit matters because it won't matter. Like, it just won't take in the connection. But newer cable boxes will. And so they talk basically entirely about TV and sports. So they have an NFL deal with, and so they're going to have exclusive NFL content on the Xbox One for when you're watching football. And they're going to have exclusive content from EA Sports for FIFA and for all the other games. So they basically focused on the two things that no one who is like a gamer actually cares about, which is
Yeah.
sports games and TV.
Daggone.
Yeah,
I
it
mean, don't get
was.
me wrong. There's a lot of positive features that I'm seeing sported, and I like the fact that it comes with a Kinect, whereas now you have to buy it separately,
Well,
and you
okay.
can
Do you
use the
want to?
Kinect to give voice commands.
Okay. Do you want to talk a bit about the Kinect because their new Kinect has me a little bit baffled. I liked the
Okay.
old Kinect from a hardware standpoint because I've actually worked with it, but I never worked with it on the Xbox because the problem with the original Kinect was not really so much the hardware in the Kinect, but rather the Xbox 360 itself was just not powerful enough to take in and process the amount of data that you could actually get from a Kinect. And
Oh,
so
okay.
that was one of the huge problems with it. The Wii had the same issue with motion controls. The Wiimotes have really good hardware in them. They're actually really precise and accurate. But the Wii wasn't fast enough to process that data. And so with my Wii U, when I'm playing a lot of games, like a lot of Wii games,
Yeah.
they run a lot smoother. They're just better all around, and it's just because of the extra hardware power. Basically, it's a faster system, so it processes the data from the Wiimote just faster. So then the whole game experience is just a lot better. Now they've obviously fixed this to some degree with the Xbox One versus the Xbox 360 because you have a lot faster of a system,
And a higher grade camera, from what I understand, too.
and a lot better of a camera. And they have infrared now. Or no, I don't think they're using infrared. They're using like night vision or some crap for when you're in a dark room. And the FOV has been increased 60%, so that now you can play you can use the Kinect from 3 feet away. Apparently, if you're inside of North American men's standard height, which is I think is 5'10".
Yeah.
So If you're 5'10", you can use the Kinect from like 3 feet away, which is a huge improvement over the original Kinect, because you had to be like 6 or 7, which is hard to do in a small house or like an apartment or a dorm room or like the million of other places. However, but this is obviously something they had to fix because you have to have the Kinect on all of the time. And
Right.
with what they're doing with the controllers, so let's say we're at your house playing Xbox One, and it's your house, so your player won, because the way that it works is that the Kinect actually notices you and assigns you your player based on your face, not your controller that you're holding. And so you would always be player one, regardless of what controller you're holding. And so now this creates a bit of an issue in that the Kinect has to be properly set up for you to play your games. So because it has to always be plugged in, it always has to be connected, but not only does it always have to be connected, with these kind of features, it has to be correctly configured as well, which means that you can't just plug it in and throw it on the floor.
Yeah.
Now, my problem with this is you might want to bring up a picture of the Kinect. I'm going to put one up in the video for the podcast. But
Okay.
the thing's goddamn gigantic.
The current one?
The new one. The new Kinect is goddamn gigantic. Like,
Let me see.
the picture that I have up in the video, not that you can currently see it, is from Polygon, but it's basically, the width is about half of the console. And the console's not all that much bigger than a 360 is at this point. But it's about half the width, and it's several inches tall. And
Yeah, I'm
it's
looking
several
at it.
inches thick.
Wow.
That's a pretty big piece of kit to put on top of your TV. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it is.
awkwardly big. Especially if you're like, for example, I could not use that on my TV if my TV were wall mounted.
That's pretty true. And I want to eventually wall mount my television. When I get a
Because
bigger one, I'll be doing that.
it's like, that thing is like 3 to 4 inches thick. And one of the things that I do basically to make money is I set up a ton of home theater systems because I'm known as the tech guy to like all my friends. So for some reason that qualifies me to tell you what TV to buy. And so like I've set up about 10 to 12 TVs, full like wall mounts, everything, do the whole home theater setup. I do that like 10 or 12 times a year. And the last TV, like all the TVs that I bought, they're like an inch thick for like the last year or two. So how am I supposed to put this thing on my TV? It's way bigger than the bezel on my TV. So it's just like,
I'm sure they're gonna have a way to make it right, though. Make
I
it
mean, it's
fit
gonna
the
fit,
way
but it's
supposed to.
awkwardly large. And no one wants stuff sticking out of their TV. It looks gross. I mean, the Wii bar works because it's about a centimeter thick, and it's about
Yeah, it's tiny.
it's a centimeter depth, centimeter tall, and then it's like about a foot long, and it works pretty like it fits very nicely on top of your television. But this thing's massive.
Actually, you brought up an interesting point a few minutes ago that I wanted to retouch on. Now that I'm actually looking at the picture of the Xbox, um, the television aspect. You talked about being able to change the input via speaking, correct?
Well, it doesn't change the input because it uses a pass through, so it doesn't change the input at all. It just brings up the television instead of the game.
So basically, I can't use voice commands to switch back and forth between an Xbox 360 and an Xbox One.
No. The Xbox One just uses like an HDMI pass through.
Yeah.
And so if you say like Xbox TV, then it just brings up the TV, but it's not actually changing the input on the TV. It's just changing to whatever is being passed through into the Xbox. Now, something that you could do is you could set up your Xbox 360 to be the pass through, and so when you say Xbox TV, it could bring up your Xbox. But I don't know how well that's going to play, because one thing, you don't know what's going to happen if HDMI controls, like if commands go over the HDMI into the Xbox 360, what happens? Like, I don't know if it's going to work.
Right.
But, I mean, theoretically, you could just plug your 360 into your Xbox One and say Xbox TV, and then it would bring up your Xbox 360.
Which would be nice.
I mean, that's something you could do, but you're still... It becomes changing... You're still going to have to put discs and stuff in your 360, so, I mean, you're still going to have to walk up to it. You might as well change the input.
Well, I mean, I can do that now with my controller. But that brings up kind of another interesting point, and I'm not sure if you can confirm this or not. Does the Xbox One have its own capture card?
It does record on it. It has the ability to software record, I think. I don't know. I don't think it has a capture card. I don't think it's doing hardware stuff. I know the PS4 has its own it has its own chip for capturing. I don't know if the Xbox One has its own chip for capturing, because they didn't talk about that. But they talked about every piece of hardware that was in it, basically. So if there was a dedicated chip for capturing with the Xbox One, I'm sure they would have said that there was a dedicated chip for capturing with the Xbox One.
Because I heard that capture cards are no longer going to be necessary anymore.
You know what? Everyone says that, but I'm going to say absolutely they're still necessary, because you can't put a good mic onto the Xbox One. And so you can't live record a good mic and your Xbox feed, like the video from the game. And so for a lot of people, for you and me, we're still going to want to use capture cards because we have them, and they're going to probably make a better video, like a better quality video than whatever the Xbox captures, on board. Plus, I know for me, if I was doing stuff with, if I'm doing stuff with my console and I want to do it live, then, pretty much any time that I'm doing any kind of commentary, I want to use my XLR mic, my good mic that I'm using right now, not the crappy headset mic from the Xbox. And so, I mean, for people who are doing, YouTube videos or videos on the internet, basically, with any level of seriousness, they're not going to be using the Xbox capture. Because, one, we don't know if you can even get the footage off the Xbox so that you can edit it. So that's an issue right there. Two, we don't know what format it's in. So it could be in some crazy proprietary format that we can't edit, which, once again, is kind of completely useless. So for people who already have capture cards and are already recording stuff from the Xbox or from the Wii or from whatever, they're still going to use the capture cards because they're going to be a lot better. You won't have to change basically your workflow. You won't have to interrupt your workflow. Now, Giant Bomb actually brought up a good point. So you can media protect your output with HDMI, and so a lot of Blu-ray players, for example, you can't run those into a capture card and then capture whatever the Blu-rays that you can't capture the Blu-ray player. You can't capture its footage with a capture card, and so they're likely going to do that with the Blu-ray player inside the Xbox. Now, will you be able to and so are they going to lock the output on games as well? Because they're likely to lock it for Blu-rays so that you can't use a capture card to record Blu-rays that you play on your Xbox.
Right.
So are they going to do that with games as well? Will capture cards work at all, or are they going to be or is the whole system going to be protected so that you can't capture with an external with an external card? Because if they do that, well, that fucks a lot of people.
Oh yeah. And I imagine that's not going to be the case. I mean, it's a big industry out there.
Well, I hope it's not the case. I mean, they're likely not going to because, well, they have a lot of partnerships with a lot of people like Rooster Teeth who use capture cards all the time. I mean, they're
Yep.
not going to stop using them because the Xbox One allows you to capture on it. But like the one of the things that you should be worried about and that it is a possibility that you won't be able to use a capture card with this, which would hurt it would hurt the workflow for a lot of people, specifically Let's Players,
Yep.
because their commentary's live, and so you want to be able to just use a capture card and record an external mic. You don't want to have to record a mic with like Audition and then record on the Xbox and then edit that all together and try to get the timings right and crap. Like that very adversely hurts the workflow of a lot of people. So I would
Yeah,
just,
absolutely.
so do you want to talk a bit about the actual box and the way that it looks?
Sure. I've actually got it up right now.
Okay then. So the first thing that I think a lot of people said was like, well, gee, this box is huge because it looks quite big. At least in the photos. But you'll notice it's not actually that big.
It doesn't
Like,
look that big. I see the CD tray.
yeah, that's the thing that I don't think people acknowledge. I thought it looked huge at first when I was just sitting up there on the stage. I was like, boy,
Yeah.
that is big, because I mean, it's just a square. But you look at like the CD tray; it's basically just twice the width of a DVD, so it's not that
Yeah,
big.
it looks like it's the same size as the Xbox Slim.
Yeah, it looks like it's the same width. It's noticeably thicker.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not huge.
I think it
I
looks
would.
fantastic personally. I mean, it's
It's
got my
not like
favorite colors personally.
Oxbox sized. I mean, that thing's a beast. You could bludgeon someone to death with it.
Which one?
The original Xbox, the
Oh, yeah,
Oxbox.
it was huge. It was
Yeah.
awkward shape too.
Um. I almost. I'm. I'm torn on the design. I like. It's sleek. It's not. It's not gross. It could be. It could be gross, but it's not. Um. I just don't like that texturing. Not the glossy parts. The other part. The part that's like textured.
Oh, I can't tell.
Mostly because when you look at like the Xbox, the Microsoft stuff, it's like a render. It's a 3D render of it. But actual
Right.
photos I've seen of it, the gradient, which they use, like the texturing that they use it on the controller as well, and it's kind of gross. Like it looked just not comfortable. I have this thing about textures though that bug me because I used to have this glass set that had like this really gross texture, and like literally it would make like you didn't want to drink things out of it because it just like made your teeth feel bad, like made your mouth feel bad. So when I see that texture on things, it just brings back that glass set to me, and then I kind of want to puke. Like a very weird glass set. I've never used cutlery and plates and
Do you
glasses that
plan on
made you
touching your
literally
console very much?
just looking at it brings back that awful feeling. So I don't like it.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the same way with the Xbox Slim now. It feels the same way as the controller.
Uh, and then if you look at you've looked at the back, right?
No.
Oh, so on the back you've got pretty much all the things that you would expect. You've got power on the left side, HDMI out next to power, SPDIF for audio for like proper speakers. And then you have two USB, then you have the Connect, which always has to be in, and then you have an IR out for some reason. I have no I don't know why there would be an infrared out, because you would think that it's at like, I was thinking about this, it would be like a repeater. If you look at your cable box, normally there's an IR out on the
Right.
back of it so that you can run a cable out to next to your TV, so that you don't
Right.
have to point your cable box remote at the cable box but rather at the TV. but because the only reason why you would basically be doing that is because your Xbox doesn't take, or I mean your cable box can't take commands over HDMI, so it wouldn't work with the HDMI in on your Xbox One.
Gotcha.
So what's this magical IR? Because it's not to control your cable box.
It's to control your mind.
Terrifying. We'll talk about one of the things that the Kinect can do next, actually, because of that. But basically,
Okay.
there's this IR out, and I want to know what it's for. Because, like, I can't think of a reason for it. Which makes me very... Anything that I don't know, even if it's just something very boring and lame, instantly makes me interested. So I
Well,
want to know what this magical IR out is.
well, and my guess is that as we get closer to release, we'll find out maybe some of the accessories that they're selling with it that thing might serve a purpose for.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, it's there for a reason. They wouldn't invest the money to put it there if it wasn't going to have some sort of thing, or I should say, some sort of accessory that would work well with it. Otherwise, it's just a waste of space. They could put that, chip in there that we talked about. So it's there for a reason. Let me ask you this: what do you like about the Xbox One?
Okay, so this is going to sound really nerdy because this has nothing to do with games or with any of the hardware in it. None of that shit interests me. In fact, the Xbox One is a gaming like from a gaming standpoint, no interest in it as no interest in it at all. I don't want to make, and from a game creator standpoint, no
Yeah,
interest in it at all either, because the only thing that they have going for it, like, that I can't do anywhere else, is the Kinect, and I have no interest for the Kinect. And they actually confirmed a Kinect 2 release for PC sometime in the future. So
interesting.
there will be a Kinect available for the PC, and it's going to have the same specs. So I have no interest in making games for the Xbox, like from an indie standpoint. I have no interest in playing games on it. I have no interest in it at all, except for the OS architecture, because it sounds interesting, however not very elegant. It sounds quite brute force how they're handling the OS. So basically the operating system is split into 3 chunks. And you have two, so you have like a small chunk, and it's practically just a kernel, and it just handles switching between the 2 other operating systems. And one of them is the part that handles just games, and the other
Uh-huh.
one handles apps. And apps are like Skype, messaging, like Xbox Live messaging, voice, like voice chat through not Skype, like the regular Xbox Live voice chat, which
Right.
I have a feeling, because they talked a lot about Skype, maybe that's going to be gone and they're just going to use Skype. So when you add people as like a friend on Xbox, they go in your Skype friends list contacts, which might be kind of gross and not what I want at all, because I use Skype to talk to people. Like, I use Skype for this podcast and to talk to family members. And very few people that I know have my Skype account, and I want to keep it that way. So so I wouldn't really agree with that from a privacy standpoint. I mean, I don't like when certain things cross over, especially because I have an actual premium Skype account so that I can do group video calls. I end up getting, if people phone me on Skype, it routes to my phone because that's just a free thing that you get. So I don't want people on goddamn Xbox phoning me all the damn time. So,
That's actually, I was talking to you yesterday. Saw it
yeah.
go off on my phone.
And
I was like,
so
why is he calling?
so the worst possible thing is that people from Xbox Live can phone you. Because
Whoa.
that would be terrible. I just don't want that at all. So, but basically you have 2 major parts of the OS, which is, well, they're, yeah. So you have basically a mini OS that has that handles games and one that just handles apps. And then you have a smaller one that's essentially just a kernel that switches between the two, and each one has like its own display plate. So when you're playing a game and you say like Xbox TV, the TV part is handled in the apps part of the OS.
Yeah.
And so the game part will just pause and then it'll switch to the TV, and it's like pretty instant. It only takes like a second. And so there's like really quick switching between the two. However, the way that they managed to do that by making them two like completely different entities is kind of brute forcing this. Like there's a lot of hardware in the Xbox One that's reserved basically for just the apps. And so you'll never be able to get access at those as a game designer, because the way they take basically the idea of a virtual machine in software guarantees you a certain amount of memory. It guarantees you certain amounts of resources that you can't guarantee yourself when running code like outside of a VM, because like you can't guarantee yourself that you're going to have 32 gigs of RAM or whatever. Like you can't guarantee that. But if you do it in a VM, then it virtualizes the hardware so that it looks like the hardware is there even if it's not. And so then it doesn't affect your program. It makes it really easy to transport and throw around onto whatever machines you want. And because the Xbox One is standard, like they're always going to be the same from release to the death of the system, like end of generation. The hardware is always going to be the same. So each part of the OS is guaranteed this amount of hardware, and so they can get at these resources all the time. So that's how they can basically put two OSs on the system at the same time and not worry about resource management.
Right.
So from a nerdy, oh gee, I want to learn about operating systems and I like architecture and hardware, I'm like, yeah, this is interesting. Everything else is like, oh god, no, why did you do this? So the only thing that I like about the system is basically I want to go there and I want to read all of the documentation about it because I want to know how it works. I pretty much the only part that I'm really interested in is the part that switches between the two OSs, because I want to know how like that third part works, because I can't think of anything else in computing that's ran two OSs that switch like that. Like I can't think of any major systems that do that. So I want to know it. Even though it's not a very elegant solution to what they were trying to do. I think that you could do it a lot better, but that there's new problems that pop up as a result, and that this is probably the easiest way to do it, but it's kind of gross and brute force. But brute force is often logically the simplest way to do something.
Yeah, well, that's why there's an attack named after it.
So, what are you liking about this system?
First of all, I like that it comes with the Kinect. That's a plus for me because I never bought a Kinect.
Well, they basically needed to do that because, like, the problem with the Kinect now is that it's such a gimmicky concept that, like, no one wants to do anything real with it. Because you can't guarantee that someone has it. So like if you're making like a new Halo game, you can't build in Kinect functionality and think that it's going to be used because 90% of people don't have one.
Right.
And with how much like they've built around the Xbox One working with the Kinect, like just for general like moving around the system to do stuff like watching movies and crap.
Yeah.
You can't enforce a lot of the things that they're doing with the Kinect without having one. For example, like if you look at the controller, I think this is a good segue to switch to the controller. Okay. And then we'll go back to what you like. So I'm going to bring up a picture of the controller. But if you look at the controller, they got rid of the 4 bars that indicate your player, right? And I talked about this slightly earlier, where the Kinect actually identifies you as the player. And so when you pick up a controller, like, you, Victor, are player 1 because we're at your house in this scenario. Then no matter which controller you have, it'll always be controlling the player 1 portion of the screen.
Right.
And so, like, you need to have a Kinect to do that. So there's just a lot of functionality built in to the system based around the Kinect.
I got you.
Have you looked at the controller yet?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, I looked at it and it didn't really look that much different from the current one, except
It's
now it's black and silver.
Yeah, the silver one looked gross in the pictures I saw of it. It just the color was wrong. It just it looked like a kind of nasty gray. I mean, obviously there's some big changes on the controller. I think the first one, the one that I'm the most pleased with, is the D-pad.
The What's different about it?
The D-pad is now, it's got four. It's just a cross. It's a plus sign. On the 360 pad, it's a circle,
Uh-huh.
and it has like the four ups on it. And
Yeah.
those, the problem with that is that it it makes it easy to roll over and hit diagonally when you're
Right.
not trying to, and so it makes it bad for fighting games.
Well, funny thing is, I have this hard time now. First of all, one of my hands is part machine.
Yeah.
Um, I have this little condition I call jitter thumb. And the thing of it is, sometimes, with the current joysticks on the Xbox, hitting down or pushing down on the joysticks does something. Whereas so I'm not really sure.
Oh, like pushing them in.
Yeah, basically, if you push them in, like in Halo, you'll either zoom in or you'll duck, depending on which one you pushed. And I don't like that because essentially what that means is I can accidentally do something that I don't want to do. I'd like a way to be able to disable that, but currently there is none.
I'm doubtful that they'll do that with the next gen as well, because they apparently still push in. From what I've
Well,
heard from like Sessler and Polygon, they still push in.
that's what she said.
And but the D-pad looks a lot better. Apparently, it like clicks when you push it down. It just looks
Yeah.
a lot better for fighting games
Cool.
than the original 360 pad. Um, and then they have the new buttons, which, to be honest, I don't really like.
They don't
I
look that
mean,
much different from the old ones.
they don't look that much different from the old ones, but I just don't like. I don't know. I just don't like them. They
You would be a hard person to sell something to. You don't like a lot of things, do you, Ryan?
No, I like my keyboard. They look like they come out quite far, and they just I don't know. They apparently feel exactly like the new or like the old 360 pad, which isn't bad. I just don't like that they're not colored. Like they just have like the letters in them with a color, but the surrounding space is black, which I can't really agree with. I feel like that's bad from an identification standpoint because I have issues where I have five different controllers that I consistently work with, like that I
Yeah.
consistently use. I use a 360 pad, I use keyboard and mouse, I use SNES controller, I got like the Pro controller for the Wii U, I've got a gamepad, I've got N64 controllers, GameCube controllers, like I've got every kind of controller that's basically ever existed. And
Right.
so I don't I don't work with the letters when I'm working with a controller because the letters are stupid because they change for every controller. So I just look at the colors on the 360 pad, and because I like it consistently when I switch games to because I don't play a lot of games with the 360 pad that I can't
Right.
remember the corresponding buttons. So I just don't like that they're not fully colored. Uh you'll notice on the bottom of the controller they have a plug there and it's proprietary. So I'm assuming that's going to be a mic, just like the 360.
Microsoft, if you're listening, unlike my counterpart here, I'm just glad that the thing's coming out. I really, really, really like the new features for it. I do wish that it could cook my eggs for me. That'd be great. That way I don't have to burn myself anymore. But it looks, I will say that even with the lack of backwards compatibility, which again I don't care about, I'm looking forward to the console overall. The little things like buttons and the design and shape don't really bother me that much. In fact, I like the simplistic look of it.
Well,
Uh,
I overall like the controller.
do
Like they
you?
changed the bumpers and they changed the triggers. The triggers are wider now, and the
Yeah.
bumpers are wider as well, and they kind of jut out a bit. And they have rumble packs still in the handles, but they also have rumbles in the triggers.
Oh, that's cool.
So you can individually rumble each trigger.
Right.
And from what they were talking about with Adam Sessler, you can kind of use them to create like resistance in the triggers so that
Uh-huh.
they're harder to pull down if you were playing like a racing game or something like that.
Hmm.
So, like, or if you're playing like a fighting game, let's say, and you're like trying to grapple with a guy and throw him, you can make pulling the triggers harder.
Actually, a fighting game came out recently. I know this is a little bit off topic that I was kind of curious to try. I don't play them very often.
Was it Injustice?
Yes.
Uh, that I have that game. I have it for the Wii U, and it's pretty good. Um, it's a reasonably interesting, or it's a reasonably easy like fighting game to pick up.
Right.
Because they give you all the information on like frame startups and all the combos and stuff right away to you, and you can
Yeah.
like queue the combos up on like a bar next to your character's name, so that you can
Wow.
see what the combos are while you're playing. You can't do that in online play because it's competitive and it would be unfair. But you can do it
Right.
in practice mode and stuff, and when you're playing the campaign. So
No, it looks fantastic. I like the graphics for it. I like how it looks like the backgrounds and scenery actually interact with you and what you do.
yeah,
And I like the characters that they chose too. But it looks like Superman's evil.
um, there's an well in the story there's an evil Superman and a good Superman.
Really?
Well, they go into an alternate universe, and one of the alternate universe Superman's evil because the Joker convinced him to kill Lois Lane.
How?
So, uh, a psycho something, a drug that made Superman think that Lois Lane was the Joker, or no, made him think that Lois Lane was Doomsday. So he used all of his strength to punch Lois Lane in the face and killed her.
Holy crap. Well, yeah, that kind of would kill her.
And then Superman realized that humans can't be trusted and that he needs to rule the world with an iron fist to save them.
So does it actually show him killing her?
No, because I don't know.
That kind of sucks.
He kills the Joker in like the first 30 seconds of the game. He like guts him. He just sticks his hand in him and like rips out all of his guts. But they don't show the
Wow.
guts, which is kind of sad. But
So he basically did what Batman could never do.
yeah.
Well, he is Superman.
And then he tries to murder Batman. Alternate universe Batman and current universe Batman. The game's story is a clusterfuck. But
I wasn't interested in
whatever.
the story, but again, I don't play those types of games very often, but this one actually did catch my eye. Um, Yahtzee did a review on it, and
I
actually,
haven't seen it yet then.
he does. I love his reviews; they're fantastic, and they're hilarious. On top of that, even though he hates Halo, seemingly. Um, but yeah, I mean, and so I just did a little bit of research on it because I was curious as to what it was about. Uh,
The
and
story's
then I
pretty good. Plus, Aquaman's a badass, and Aquaman's like one of
really
the
that
best
never happened.
superheroes. Oh, shut up! He's one of the best superheroes. He's one of the only superheroes who could canonically kill Superman.
Who can what?
He can kill Superman within the canon of the universe.
How?
Without Superman is weak to magic.
Since when?
Since forever, it's actually the only thing that he's truly weak to. Kryptonite is based on writer's preference, uh, because there's different types of kryptonite, for example, and so green kryptonite's not actually only makes like Superman marginally weaker, whereas black kryptonite like steals his powers permanently, depending on who's the writer, and it's all
I
stupid
thought that was
bullshit.
old.
But Superman is always vulnerable to magic, and Aquaman's trident is technically a magical trident. So if Aquaman wanted to, he could just impale Superman with his trident and kill him.
Wow.
So, Aquaman,
I
the fucking best. What a
like the way
badass.
Robot Chicken always throws him around personally.
So, yes, Aquaman. Plus, he's got a badass super. Fucking shark eats his enemy. He, like, impales them with a trident, sticks it up in the air, and then a shark comes by and eats them off the trident. It's awesome.
See, what happens is the guy just goes back on his boat, and then Aquaman's screwed.
Uh, but yes, the the game's pretty good. I find it quite enjoyable. Um,
Excellent.
I wanted to get back to these triggers because they're interesting to me.
Okay.
Uh, so there's some other things like the rumble's a lot more precise. So for example, they can like create a wave through the controller that goes like left to right that you can feel rumbling from all the way from left to right.
Uh-huh.
So like there's just a lot of really precise rumble in the controller, which is kind of cool for like an immersion standpoint.
Yeah.
And then one of the biggest changes you'll see the back is flat because it has the battery pack integrated into it. It still
Uh-huh.
uses double A's. You just like push it off the top, but it's like the pack's like integrated in. So you'll need rechargeable batteries, I think,
Yeah, probably. Or
because you
unless
won't be
it's,
able to buy just like battery packs that you lay around. Like every time the batteries die, you're gonna have to take the back off and actually take batteries out.
do you think it'll have an option to plug it in like the current Xbox?
There's a USB, there's a micro USB on the top.
Cool. Because that's what I usually do now. I mean, don't get me wrong, wireless is nice, but especially when I'm in the middle of doing a mythic run, I like it to be as precise as it can be. I mean, I notice just a tad bit of lag sometimes.
Um,
Sometimes.
with the only so one of the things that you need to note about the 360 controllers, the wireless ones, the they have a USB on the top of them, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that can't pass control signals through it. It's always through Wi-Fi. That USB port can only take power. So even if you take a wireless controller and plug it in with a USB, it doesn't do anything besides charge it. The
That may be
commands
the
are still
case. That
sent
may
through
be the
Wi-Fi.
problem that I'm facing then, because if it ever loses any, I guess, power for just even a millisecond, which is entirely possible. My controller's old; it's custom made. Um,
But yeah, the wireless ones always send commands over Wi-Fi because that USB port is not designed to send the actual commands over. That's why you can't take a wireless 360 pad and plug it into a PC.
uh,
Yeah. So
so
there's plenty of people who think that you can just plug them in and they'll work with like a PC, but
uh
they always send their commands over Wi-Fi. So,
what if you use a wired one?
while a wired one, the commands have to go through the wire.
Yeah.
They're wired. They're specifically designed to go through the wire.
Well, I mean, can
Um,
you plug them into a PC and have them work? I've never actually
yeah,
tried it.
well, the wired 360 pads are mainly sold to be plugged into PCs.
Nice.
Like I have a wired one right here that I use for some games, specifically racing games. So,
Actually, that's something I wanted to bring up with you. Uh, I kind of want to get back into Mario Kart a little bit, but problem is Mario Kart's only out for Nintendo. Are they ever planning on making a PC version?
of Mario Kart, no,
Yeah.
but there's a game that's better than Mario Kart
What's
that
that?
I've been all about since it came out. Sonic and All Stars Racing Transformed came out last year, and it's the
Oh,
best kart racer I've ever played in my
why is
goddamn
that?
life. Well, one, your vehicle when you're like going through a race, it changes from a boat, an airplane, and a car, which is just cool. So it's like Diddy Kong Racing, but
Uh-huh.
like modernized. And the powers for it. Okay, well, one, the actual driving controls are just better. The cars are way faster, which is awesome. Um, like S rank races, your car is like legitimately fast. It feels fast, which is not really a case in Mario Kart. Like it's always felt kind of slow no matter what. And the power ups are way better balanced. Like they don't have a blue shell. They have something equivalent to it, but it doesn't work the same way. It puts like a trap in front of the person in first place, so then they can like dodge the trap, and then everyone behind them still has to dodge the trap as well.
Right.
And so like that's just a lot fairer than the blue shell because the blue shell just hits the person in first place.
Yeah.
And
In
the
track
track
this
designs are just way
robot
better.
chicken. No, don't hit the blue shell. It always goes after the lead car. It hits them.
Yeah. And then the track designs are just a lot better, and it's not a very expensive game. I think you can buy it for 360 for like $30.
What about for PC?
It's on Steam, so I don't know what it costs on Steam, but it is on Steam, and that game's really good. If you get it on Steam, it comes with a few exclusive drivers. One of them is like, I think one of them's the Pyro, one of them's the Heavy, like from TF2.
Yeah.
And I think another one. Oh, one of them is the Football Manager from Football Manager, because that's a really popular game for some reason. And I think the Samurai from Total War.
What'd you say it was called?
Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed.
Let me look. I'm actually I always like trying some new games, and one of the things I like about racing games is there's no real plot to it, so you can just kind of play it whenever. Wow, they have another game on Steam called Resident Evil Revelations. I don't know what that
That's
is.
actually good.
Is it?
Yes, it's way better than Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil Revelations is a lot like the original Resident Evils. And so if you actually liked the first, like, 2 or 3 Resident Evil games,
Yeah.
then you'll like Resident Evil Revelations. Plus, it has, like, very little to do with the main storyline, so it's just good. Unlike the older... Unlike 5 and 6. 5 and 6 are just action games. They're not really survival horror anymore.
Yeah.
Resident Evil Revelations is actually good. It came out originally for 3DS. It was a 3DS exclusive, and now it's coming out on PC and I think Wii U.
How are the graphics?
And, they like obviously they upgraded them for the PC and the Wii U version. They're in 1080p, like pretty high res textures. If you go on Steam, you can look at the screenshots. They don't look bad. So
Nice. Let me check this out real quick. Let's see how this is going. I started playing Resident Evil 6, and I really enjoyed what I played. I just, again, Halo 4 came out, and it's been taking up all my time, for better or worse.
well, Resident Evil Revelations isn't like Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 5 and 6 have a lot more shooting in them and are like they're action games. The first like 4 Resident Evil games, you pretty much had to very scarcely use your ammo or else you would die because you
Right.
would run out and then just get killed by a monster.
I'm trying to think. So, what monsters are in Resident Evil Revelations?
It's like mildly sea themed, so I mean they're still zombies like every Resident Evil game, but they
Yeah.
have like tentacles and shit.
Okay.
Let's get back to the Xbox One because there's still a ton of stuff to talk about regarding it. So do you want to talk about achievements because they've apparently substantially changed the achievement system?
Go for it.
So there's basically like cloud-driven achievements so that you can add achievements to the game as you want to. Like, let's say it's Skyrim, and all of a sudden taking an arrow to the knee becomes a meme on the internet. You can make getting shot in the knee an achievement, like after the game's been released without releasing DLC.
Wow.
And so you can just add achievements whenever you want. However, that's not the most impressive thing Microsoft's decided to do with achievements. Instead, this is the most impressive thing. They've filed for a patent that makes watching TV create achievements. So, if you're watching your TV through your Xbox, you can get achievements for watching different television shows.
That's kind of lame.
That is some achievement whoring right there.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Like getting achievements for watching the season finale of Game of Thrones live or some shit.
I
You
wasn't once
watched
upon a time.
8 hours of football this weekend. Here's an achievement.
It says you have no life.
Because,
Daggone.
so, just, more pushing of television.
Wow.
So,
See, the funny thing is, I don't have cable or anything.
yeah, it's quite silly. And then, obviously, Xbox Live is still subscription based. They're the only one who's subscription based in the current gen and next gen. So the Xbox One will have like a $15 a month fee tied to it. It's the exact same as what it costs now for Xbox Live Gold, and it transfers over between them. But they
Wow.
changed the friends limit. It's no longer 100; it's 1,000.
Damn it. That means people now I can't use the excuse I reached my friend limit.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. And
Tywins, will you
but
please friend me? No, I reached my friend limit. But they have 900 more now. No!
but what I find interesting is that they've said that basically if you have an Xbox Gold membership for your system
Uh-huh.
on one of the accounts, then anyone can use it regardless of the account they're on.
I don't understand.
So like let's say in a theoretical situation you and I live in the same house.
Okay?
And you have Xbox Live Gold and we use the same Xbox. And I don't have Xbox Live Gold. I can be logged into my account using the system and have Xbox Live Gold privileges
Yeah.
because your account's on the system.
Isn't that a good thing?
So like you only need, yeah, it is a good thing because now you only need one Xbox Live Gold account per house, assuming
Yeah.
each house only has one Xbox.
That's awesome.
Because like you're gonna need one Xbox per, or one account per Xbox basically. Like if you and I, because if you're on an Xbox using let's say we have two Xboxes now and our accounts are on both, and you have Xbox Live Gold, and you're using one of them, then I wouldn't be able to use the other Xbox and have your gold privileges. So,
Right.
like, or at least that's the way that I'm understanding what Ben Kilgore said. So basically, you'll be able to ride on the same membership regardless of, like, everyone in the house can use the same Xbox membership regardless of how many accounts are on the system.
That's pretty awesome. Daggone. Well, no, that's definitely a good thing. At first, I thought you were pitching that like, oh man, this is terrible, and I'm like, why?
No, it is good because it'll fix the multiplayer, because like a lot of games is like you can only have one guest, but you can play with 4 people online if you have enough Xbox Live Gold accounts, and it's like, fuck off. So this will be nice because basically, no, you'll be able to bring your friends with you online regardless of whether or not they have Xbox Live. So,
Yeah.
well, if they're at your house at least. Which was one of the issues that I remember having with the 360, where it's like, let's play Halo. You can only have one guest with you in this game type. It's like, fuck off. Let me play Big Team Battle, damn it.
No.
So,
Actually, they talked about possible PC release for Halo 3.
it's too late.
No, I'd still really enjoy it. I loved Halo 3. Here's to hoping. All right, so next topic.
Um, they're changing avatars. So
Okay.
they're gonna keep avatars, but they want people to use like real pictures of themselves on Xbox Live instead of avatars.
I heard that they were gonna have avatars that were based on your face.
Um, yeah. So it has avatars like the 360, but basically they think that people want to will use more like real pictures to represent themselves on Xbox One. So the avatars still are there, but they want people to start using pictures instead of avatars.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like they're going to be gone, it's just they would rather you use a real picture of yourself.
Oh. Well, I'd rather have better customization anyway. Right now, I have to have two gloves. I just want one.
And then oh gee. Uh they talked about this during the release or during the reveal, so you can like save and restart your game at any point. Uh that was probably a given, especially based on how the games actually work, because like the game OS is its own thing, so you can just save state that and then leave it exactly where it is, because all of your games have to install to the hard drive.
Right.
And then the discs have like an authentication key on them.
Uh-huh.
Actually, this is something that we should talk about because they've clarified this in a fairly big way. So the way that they explained it during the reveal, I assumed that that when you sold your disc or like gave it to a friend to borrow, he would have to install it to the system, and if you had the disc in, then he wouldn't have to pay like the second-hand fee, because they're basically, they got rid of online passes, like the
Right.
little slip-ins, and they basically put it in software that does it. So there's like an authentication key bound on each disc, and they've clarified what it is. So when you install the disc, it authenticates the system to play the game that you installed the game onto.
Uh-huh.
And when you put the disc in and install it on another system, it deauthorizes the first system.
Oh.
So then the person won't be able to play the game again until they get the disc back and put it
Huh.
in and reauthorize. That way you can't. Now, there's a very specific reason why you have to do this, and it makes complete sense to me, and this is a lot better sounding than it was sounding during the reveal and
Yeah.
everything leading up to it. And it's so that it's so that I couldn't just buy the new Halo, install it on my Xbox, and then give it to you, and you install it on your Xbox, and then give it to some other dude, and he installs it on his Xbox, and we've only bought one copy of Halo.
Right.
And so this actually doesn't sound that bad, because
No.
instead it just authorizes and deauthorizes based on who used the disc last.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And so that's sounding a lot better than it was sounding earlier, because it was pretty bad before, mostly because everyone thought you had to pay a $15 fee to lend your friend a game or
Wow.
to use it on a different Xbox or whatever.
Which would suck.
Yeah. Now, the thing that does suck is that the Xbox requires like authentication checks consistently.
Uh-huh.
So you can only run it for 24 hours without internet.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or else what?
It doesn't work. Like,
Oh
if you
boy.
don't have internet for 24 hours, it won't let you play games on it.
Daggone, that sucks.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, most of the time we're going to have internet. Like,
Yeah.
I'd assume you would as well. But, like, if I move, then I can't use my Xbox. Because, like, at least for the first few days, because my internet's not set up. Or if
That
you have a cabin out in the woods that you like to stay at, can't use your Xbox because it needs the internet.
Well, hopefully you wouldn't be taking your Xbox to the cabin anyway.
Well, I know lots of people who have, like, just a system set up at the cabin that are, like, wherever they go out, very far away. Like, for example, my friend has, like, a trailer with a generator in it. Like, it's got a TV and an Xbox.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, he wouldn't be able to use the new system in the trailer because no internet in the trailer.
Right.
Because you're out in the middle of the woods. So, like, there's lots of like basically situations where like this system is kind of crappy, but whatever. It's a lot better than it was sounding before when it sounded like it was always online.
Right.
where like if you lost internet for 3 minutes, it would kick you off because that was what everyone thought a month ago.
Daggone.
Um, and then I guess the last do you let's talk about the three things that are kind of gamey that they talked about. So they talked about a game called Quantum Break, which is a original IP that they're releasing with the Xbox One.
Right.
And did you see the trailer for it?
No.
No? Okay. They didn't really show any gameplay, but there's like real video in it, like live action video. So like it's FMV. Like you remember the FMV games that were on like the Sega CD?
No.
Like the full motion video ones where it's like real people talking to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It looks like that because or at least like it's like the return of full motion video in games, which was like a huge fad and then very quickly disappeared because you can't really do anything gamey with it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this looked like. Like Quantum Break made no sense because like a woman who's like a real woman talking to her real daughter. Like these aren't renders. This is like a video, and then a fucking boat crashing through a bridge. It's like, what is this game? Why does it exist? Why is there full motion video in it? This is the thing no one wants in games, but there it is.
That's what they had for the original Resident Evil.
Yeah. And it wasn't very good, but the re-release was much better and everything was in 3D polygons and
Yep.
the models were shitty, but it doesn't matter. The game was much better.
Yep.
So they had Quantum Break, which looked just silly, because nothing with FMV can be good. It's just a rule. Any games that have full motion video at this stage are not good. And then Steven Spielberg talked about... No, it wasn't Steven Spielberg, was it? Oh, maybe I'm wrong. No,
I
it
know
was
he's
Spielberg.
on board the project.
Yeah,
He's gonna work
Steven
on it.
Spielberg. He's making the Halo TV show.
Now, what is? I didn't hear a whole lot about that.
They didn't talk a whole lot about it. It's a Halo TV show exclusive to the Xbox One. So you gotta own an Xbox One, then you can watch the Halo TV show. And it's supposed to be like premium TV, so it's supposed to be like HBO style content.
Wow. I wonder what they could possibly do with the Halo TV show. And man, they're milking that thing for everything it's worth.
Yeah, well, they were pretty much like... They pretty much said it during the press conference. They're like, Forward Unto Dawn was good, so we're making this TV show. It's like...
Well, Forward Unto Dawn was actually really good. But you know, the thing of it is, I thought Forward Unto Dawn was fairly slow up until the middle of it where the Covenant actually show up. Because up until then, it was actually kind of boring.
I haven't seen it, but how is this a selling point for a console?
Because if you're a die-hard Halo fan and this is the only way you can see Halo, you're going to buy the console.
But it's obviously going to get ripped and then put on the internet.
And it will.
I mean,
Just
you can
like
already
everything
download
else.
Arrested Development.
I know, I hate that show. But
Oh, that's just not even right.
don't get me wrong, I love the blonde. But the show is just boring to me. I don't know why. I'd really like to see kind of Terra Nova. Netflix is the one who adopted Arrested Development for season 4, and I heard talks that they were going to do Terra Nova season 2.
I never watched Terra Nova because I thought it looked bad. So
It was actually really good. You know, I was skeptical too. You know, dinosaur shows don't typically do well in this day and age, but it was actually very well done.
yeah, so then they showed Halo, they showed Forza, which I think everyone knew was coming
Yeah.
because they've launched a Forza game with every Xbox. It's just a game that comes out with Xbox. However, it looked not as good as the PlayStation version of Forza. It was like Car Club or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna look it up because I want to know what that goddamn Drive Club. It was called Drive Club, and that shit, that dude who was on stage during the PS4 conference for Drive Club sold me on that shit. He was up there and he was basically jerking himself off to car porn. He was like, look at the amazing rims. Look at the upholstery on the car seats. They're amazing. Doesn't this game look amazing? Oh my god, the cars just look amazing. Oh yeah. The cars. And then this guy came out and he's like, there's a new Forza game. You race cars. It's like, man, get into it. Get into it, damn it. So, I mean, based on the two conferences, Drive Club sounds a lot better. Only because that man was really into it.
Wow.
And then they ended off with, oh no, they showed renders of EA Sports games for the next gen console using in-game assets, and they looked like ass. Yeah. Those people do not look like people, but that's for another day. And the dude who came up had like 10 popped collars, and he looked like he worked at EA Sports.
Yeah.
But he didn't look like he worked on games. He was definitely like a PR guy. And he was definitely a bro. And he was up there talking about FIFA and Madden and how they would be awesome. And boy, did they look the same as they did last year. Even graphically, they look pretty much the same. They did not look good. Especially because they decided to, like, show off, like, close-ups of the models. Which you don't see in the actual games ever. Like, you're pretty much playing top-down, right? And, like, you're pretty far away from the players.
Right.
They showed close-ups on the models. They looked terrible. Just terrible. So, no clue why they did that. Awful idea, in my opinion. Very blatantly pre-rendered. And then they ended the conference, literally ended the conference on a 10-minute, like, clip of Call of Duty that had problems in the pre-render.
Yeah.
And boy, was it... It was... I'm sorry, I want to find this one picture. They just, like, showed off basically a cinematic for Call of Duty Ghosts, and then they told us they mocapped a dog. And they didn't even get, like... They didn't even get the lighting. Oh, and they talked about how amazing the arms looked. They're like, the forearms have hairs on them now. They only look amazing because they didn't look good apparently before. And then they showed off this environment where the lighting's all incorrect. You can, like, see the sun in the distance, and then there's just, like, sun shafts coming out from the left-hand side of the screen. But you can see the sun in front of you. So where are these sun shafts coming from? Is there like a gigantic spotlight above the trees?
Yes.
So, just awful. Awful. And it looked exactly like what it was before. It looks no different than any other of the Infinity Ward Call of Duty games. It looks like it takes itself... It looks like it takes itself way too seriously. Like it's a very serious game. Do not... This game is not to be laughed at. How dare you laugh at their game?
I'm a Halo guy, so I laugh at it all the time.
They hired on the writer for Traffic, and it's a serious game with emotional connections and consequences and a story, damn it, which is why they mocapped a dog.
Daggone.
So... The big selling point is they mocapped a dog. And they're telling us that they're making... That there's this dog and that we have this huge emotional connection in the game with the actual... with the NPCs. So clearly they killed the goddamn dog. So it's just like, fuck you. So, yeah. But, you know, it's revolutionary. It's new. because they brought back leaning into the game. So that's their big mechanical revolution, is that they've added lean mechanics so that you can like lean around corners into
Yeah.
the game. Except that's been there since COD 2.
Yeah, pretty much.
They got rid of it in Modern Warfare 2, and then it wasn't in Modern Warfare 3. I think it was in Black Ops 1 for PC, and I think it was in Black Ops 2 for PC. And now they're bringing it back for Modern Warfare 4, basically, or well, it's called Ghosts, but I mean, same fucking game.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're adding anything new here. What they're really doing is just removing the thing that they took out from the console versions. So, I mean, fucking get excited, guys. So, I was hugely disappointed with the reveal, and I was actually I had to get up early because it was at like 10 a.m. So I had to get up, like shower and everything. I had to get on and like live blog the stupid thing for some website, and then I was like tweeting it, watching it, and it was just terrible. And then this Nancy woman got up and talked about how she was like an innovator and how the Xbox is an innovator just like her because she made CSI, which is like the most derivative, boring show ever, and it has 4 of it. God damn it! So
Yeah.
innovation, and how the Xbox One was going to be the new water cooler, which doesn't make any sense. But you tell him, Nancy, and then this Bonnie woman got on, and I'd bang her, but whatever. And then she's like, you tell him, Nancy, and people were on stage not talking about games. So
Excellent.
the Xbox One reveal was hugely disappointing and stupid.
There
And
you go. I think we reached our conclusion.
yeah. However, the architecture panel directly after was actually interesting and worth watching.
I might have to check that out.
They just talk about like how they went about making the system and how like they kind of lay out the architecture, but it's stupidly simplified because but I found it interesting enough just from a like from like a computer scientist point of view.
Yeah.
From a programmer's point of view. I was like, "Oh, damn, that's awesome." But the rest of the reveal event was awful.
Well, at least you found a silver lining.
Yes. And I mean, I'm happy that a new system's coming out because the 360 is incredibly old and holding back gaming in a terrible way.
Well, it is. It's 8 years old.
Yeah. It should have been put out to pasture 3 years ago, but whatever. So, what else? I said that we would get back to what you're liking about the system. So, what are you liking about it besides the Kinect being there?
Let's see. Um, the big thing that I'm looking forward to, obviously the Kinect is the big thing, just the voice commands and so forth. But the thing that I'm really starting to like about it, well, first of all, it comes with a 500 gig hard drive.
Well, it has
And
to because all the games install to it.
right. But the thing of it is, right now, I've got a 25 gig hard drive in my system that I actually pried out of the case from my old Xbox and manually stuck it in. And that's what she said. But one of the things that I would have liked is a larger hard drive. Now, granted, game data itself isn't that big; it's only a couple of megs.
Well, you got to
But
install all the games to it, so there's going to be several gigs per game. But there's 3 USB ports on it for plugging in external hard drives too.
yeah, will it actually work?
Yeah. There's 2 USB 3.0 ports on the back, and there's one on the side next to the disk drive, in like a little cubby hole.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm glad I can actually expand it without physically breaking into the box.
Yeah, because you cannot. The hard drive is not user serviceable this time around,
Daggone.
so you can't take out the hard drive that's in it.
Oh, wow. Well, kind of like in the original Xbox, only technically you could take it out, you just weren't supposed to.
Well, if you take this one out, you don't have an operating system.
Well, I mean, you
So,
could take it out of the original one, but what I did was I stuck a mod chip in my original Xbox. Of course, redid the case and everything. The hard drive for that was only 11 gigs. So I stuck a 300 gigabyte hard drive in there instead. And that was pretty nice. Never used up all the space either.
no, you wouldn't. Not with save game data. It's quite small.
Very cool.
I mean, the hardware in there is. It's not impressive, but I mean, you can't hate on it.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there that I mean I'm against. It's not as powerful as the PS4, but
No, it uses DDR3 instead of DDR5, but
well, no, they use DDR3, but DDR3 is not graphics optimized. In the PS4, they use GDDR5, which is not as good as DDR3 for non-graphics operations, and
yeah.
so it's not as good as DDR3 for some things, but it's better for others. And there's the real thing is that it's just the refresh rate's a lot slower on the stuff that's in the one, the X1.
Well,
But
I kind of look at it this way. And I think this is a good point to kind of wrap things up a little bit. We can speculate all we want to about the Xbox One, but we're really not going to know a whole lot about it until we actually get our hands on it. So I'm not going to judge too much until the console is actually released. And for that matter, I'm not even going to judge it right when the console is released because we saw how the Xbox 360 was when it first came out and what a disaster, it was with all the red rings and
well,
things like that.
it's a little different this generation because we're on an x86 processor, which is the thing that we use in PCs, and like it's been the x86 standard CP the x86 standard is really well known and really well explored. That there's
Yeah.
not going to be, it's not going to be like the Power PC which is the chip that we had in the 360, where after 5 years we figure out a trick that makes games run faster. Because we're on x86, one of the potential of the Xbox One will run out way faster than the 360 because we already know what we can do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a system where I think the games that come out at launch are going to be a lot better than the games that came out at launch for the 360. But
I don't even remember what came out at launch of the 360, to be honest with you. It's been that long.
But don't expect 8 years down the line to see like way better looking games, because it's not going to happen, because we know what we can do and what we can't.
And I'm fine with that. Graphics to me aren't everything. Halo 4's graphics are fantastic. I still like Halo 3 and Halo 1. And look at me, I'm a World of Warcraft fan. That game's been out since what, 2004?
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah. That game's pretty old, but for whatever reason, it's fun enough that the graphics don't really bother me.
Yep. So, I guess that's a pretty reasonable place to end off on. So, I guess thank you guys for watching and or listening. And I've been Ryan, and with me today we had special guest Victor.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
And we will see you guys next week. So goodbye.
Tyrant out.